and welcome to this week's live weekly warm-up. You know, I've been doing this live weekly warm-up not quite every single week. I took a few weeks off here and there, but it's been almost a year. Actually, it's been over a year. It was a year in September, sometime in September, a year since I started doing these, and I've been almost every single week since then. And I realized that I've been going through all of these different exercises, and the more I do these exercises, the more that I realize that they're all really, really similar, and the goals behind them is all really similar. And honestly, that's the point, because we want them to all be getting the results out of these that they're intended for. And the nice thing about all of the different versions of the different warm-ups is that it works through different notes or slightly different challenges. But at the end of the day, pretty much all long tones are the same, and pretty much all technique exercises are the same, and all articulation exercises are the same. Yes, there's a little bit of differences that you can get out of each exercise, but for the most part, the goals are always the same. So what I wanted to do was sort of get back to the basics and really talk about what those fundamental goals are for each of these. And of course, there's potentially some technical difficulties, as there are with live streams. I'm not sure that it's showing up on Facebook. If it is on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, leave a comment so I can see that it's somewhere working. But if not, I'll just post the YouTube later. Anyways, getting to the fundamentals of long tones. The whole point of a long tone exercise is to just start developing the sound. The number one goal on a long tone is always sound quality above anything else. Rhythm doesn't matter. The notes that you play doesn't really matter. Your finger technique matters a little bit. You want to make sure that your fingers are well coordinated so you get a smooth transition, but we're not necessarily thinking about finger coordination other than the end goal of super smooth transitions from note to note. That's the goal. That's what we're listening for in a long tone. So it's all about the sound quality. So some tips that I would suggest for working on that is to really take your time. So many people I see playing long tones, they rush through them. They just go a little bit too fast. They really don't take the time to actually hear and listen and get the feedback of the sound that they're putting out through the instrument. And I think that's so important to not just play through your long tones and say, yep, I did my long tones for today. I'm becoming a better clarinetist because I did the long tones in my warm-up, but actually doing something to get something out of it. I talked about this in my video about sort of going crazy in the practice room where you just do the same thing over and over and over and expect it to just get better. But on our long tones and all of our warm-ups especially, we want to be thinking about what can we do just slightly differently to make it a little bit better. So I want to demonstrate actually the difference between those two things, whereas long tones just sort of running through it and saying, oh, yep, it's fine. I did my long tones, versus actually going into it. So this is the first way of just running through it, going through the motions and just playing it. And all I'm going to do is actually just from C up to G, just the super simple scale long tones. Honestly, that may have been the very first long tone exercise that I did back over a year ago in the live weekly warm-up. But I'm just going to demonstrate this just like as if I'm running through it, going through the motions, probably a little faster than I should. There, I did my long tones for the day. I'm good to go, ready to go on to scales or whatever, but not really. You could first of all hear that I had one bad finger coordination. I was kind of trying to make it bad, but it came out worse than I was expecting. So that was a really obvious bad mistake on the way down from F to E. There was a bunch of extra stuff in between. So we want to iron that out. And also I just wasn't thinking about my sound at all. I think it sounded fine, but I didn't do anything to try to make it better. And that's the real difference between practicing really effectively versus less effectively. Hold on, I'm having camera issues now. Okay. Today's a fun, technically challenged exercise. So the right way to do them, I'm going to demonstrate now, where you really hold it nice and long, really think about what's going on and listening to the sound that's coming back to you and focusing on all the transitions. I always say for long tones, you want to make sure that you get a good start to the note, listen for a good sustain and try to make the sustaining sound of the note as good as you possibly can, and then take a little bit of time to plan your transition to the next note. So that might go something more like this. I think I could do better with the start. It sounded okay, but it was like a little tense. I want to make it more natural. Now that's how you do actual long tones. You could see I was sort of definitely taking my time. It went much longer than the sort of rushed through version. And I was going back and making adjustments and fixing things. And even when I was holding a note, I would think about, what does this sound like? What can I do to make it sound better? I was making small embouchure adjustments, thinking about maybe more pressure with my top lip, more pressure from the corners, changing the variables with my air, and all of that stuff. So you can see that that's a very different kind of approach to this exercise. And by doing it the second way, where it's much longer and I'm actually listening, then I'm giving myself feedback. I'm figuring out what I need to do differently. I'm figuring out how to make this sound as best as I possibly can and make it a little bit better each day. And also by doing it this way, it's always a new adventure, depending on my read, depending on how I'm feeling, the atmospheric pressure, I don't know. All of those different things make it feel a little bit different. And this way, by really getting into it, it gives me time to figure out how it feels to play for today and how to get the best sound that I can on this read for this day and how to really be successful. And it makes every single thing else that I play for the day go so much better when I take the time to really think through these long tones and figure out how to get them sounding as best as I can. And also I don't get too bored of them because I'm much more engaged rather than just running through it and being done with it. So I hope that helps. I hope as we go forward, we'll obviously do more long tone warm-ups of different varieties and different kinds of exercises. But remember that no matter what, if it's a long tone exercise, these are the main fundamental goals of trying to listen to a good start to every note, a good sustain to every note, making it better in any ways that we can, and a good transition to the notes. So everything's matching in sound quality and there's nothing extra happening between the notes. So if you have any questions about any kinds of warm-up things, but especially how to get the most out of long tones, then just leave a comment on this and I will be sure to answer your questions. And I wish you the best of luck on your clarinet journey. I hope you have a happy practicing. Happy Thanksgiving later this week if you are in the United States. I hope everybody's staying safe and everything. And I will see you next week on the next live weekly warm-up, where we will be getting into the basics of technique stuff and doing some scale exercises and talking similar to this video about how to get the most out of those. So I will see you next week, and I hope you all have a great week.